What's up, YouTube? This is Russ from Russell's Reef coming to you with episode 2 of San Diego Tank Tours. This episode, we keep it local and head over to Oceanside to check out Eduardo's 70-gallon mixed reef. This tank has been established for just over 2 years, and it's truly amazing. So, let's check it out.
So here it is. This is Eduardo's 70-gallon mixed reef. The tank is a Cadlight's 70-gallon artisan model. Real cool tank. I was looking at purchasing this before I decided on the water box, and this is the first time I'd actually seen one in person, and it's definitely a real nice tank. As you can see, this is just another incredible mixed reef. All sorts of soft coral, zoas, SPS, torches, euphyllia. It's got that beautiful bubble tip nem with the lightning maroon clowns hosting in it. Looking at tanks like this just make me so jealous. I mean, this tank looks incredible. These shots are all under the daylight spectrum, so as you can see, even under daylight, everything is just popping and so bright and colorful. Truly an amazing tank. So as far as the equipment goes on the tank, I already mentioned this is the Cadlight's 70-gallon artisan model tank. For lighting, Eduardo is running 3 Ecotech Radion XR15 G4 Pros with supplements from 2 Nanotech T5 reflectors running ATI Blue Plus bulbs. With the more tanks I look at, the more I'm convinced that the T5 LED hybrid is for sure the way to go. If I could just figure out how to mount them on my tank, I would for sure add some T5s. But as of now, there's not really any super slick ways to mount them without completely redoing my whole light setup. But I'm definitely going to look into some T5 supplements in the future because, as you can tell, all the nicest tanks always have T5, I feel. And like I said, Eduardo is running 2 Nanotech T5 reflectors. They're pretty cool. He just kind of attached them to his XR15s, so kind of an easy way to add the T5s. Something that I'm definitely going to look into. For flow, Eduardo is running 2 Ecotech Vortec MP40s, the quiet drive version. No complaints there. I think it's pretty well known that MP40s are definitely a real solid pump, and I feel like most people who have them love them, so that's what he's using for flow. The sump is a Synergy Reef CL26, and for his skimmer he's using the Bubble Magnus Curve 5. As far as filtration, he uses a BRS dual reactor with carbon and GFO. Eduardo is also running an algae scrubber from Clearwater, and he was telling me how the algae scrubber has made a huge difference. He didn't have much luck running a refugium in the beginning, but the algae scrubber does a great job in keeping algae at bay. So again, that's something that I'm probably going to look into for my system. Haven't seen many algae scrubbers in person, so it was good to see one and then good to hear about all the positive outcomes he's had on his tank. His return pump is Ecotech Vectra S1, and he runs the VCA random flow generator nozzles for the return. As far as maintenance, Eduardo tries to do bi-weekly water changes, but at times it runs into monthly water changes, just like most of us. Life gets in the way. He changes filter socks and cleans the skimmer as needed, changes carbon and GFO monthly. He also cleans the algae turf scrubber as needed, which turns out to be about once a month. I just want to take a quick minute to point out that Acan garden and Zoa garden in the shot. Pretty amazing. You can tell that it's pretty established. The zoas have fully grown over the rock, and even those acans are taking over the rock. So that's something that I always try to do in my tank. I've never had much luck with the acans. I can keep them alive, but they usually lose their color in my tank and then don't really grow too fast. So for my tank right now, I've kind of been staying away, but you can see Eduardo's kind of got figured out with that garden right there. It looks amazing. Another super cool part about this tank is that NAM with the lightning maroon clowns. I just love these fish. Of course, I could never get them in my system just because they're a little too big and a little too aggressive, but having an anemone like that and then those clowns, it's awesome. So it's kind of giving me the itch to get a bubble tip in my tank and then see how it goes. I know my clowns would love it. They're always trying to host in the zoas and pretty much everything else in the tank. So I think if I got a bubble tip, they would love it. I'm just worried about it taking over my tank and obviously stinging other corals, but it's pretty amazing to watch, and this is a beautiful one in Eduardo's tank. I asked Eduardo to describe some of the setbacks that he's had with this tank, and he told me his biggest setback was just not having enough patience in the beginning and adding too many fish and corals that later on died. This is something we can all relate to. I know for myself, I have a trouble with the patience too. This time I took a while to set up my tank, but as far as adding SPS, I definitely rushed into it and added them right away. I kind of justify that to myself in my head, like, hey, if I add a bunch of SPS right now, some of them might die, but the ones that live will be giant 2 years from now, so might as well take the risk and add them early because they could grow into something huge and beautiful and very valuable. So that's how I always justify in my head, but I think we're all guilty of this, rushing in, not having enough patience, letting the tank mature. But you never really know until you try, so that's my excuse. I also asked Eduardo for some advice for people who are trying to start a reef tank, because obviously he kind of knows what he's doing. You can tell by his tank, he's got it figured out. The advice that he gave me was be patient and always do your own research. And then test your parameters with a good test kit that's not expired. I think this is pretty good advice. I know I'm guilty of not testing enough and not having enough patience, so those are definitely good words of wisdom. Another thing he added was don't chase someone else's numbers. Just because it works for someone, it might not work in your tank. Every system is different. I think that this is something that new hobbyists have real issues with. They see certain parameters on certain tanks and they think that's going to work for their tank, or that's what you need to run on your tank, but that isn't the case at all. There are people that run high nitrates, high phosphates. There are people that run super low phosphates, low nitrates, and both have successful tanks. They just have different systems. The goal is to set up an ecosystem, and every ecosystem is going to be different. Really, the goal is just finding balance within your own tank. One disadvantage or advantage that Eduardo has, depending on which way you look at it, is he is in the military. So every 3 or 4 years, he's got to tear his tank down and restart because he has to move. He said this allows him a chance to learn from his mistakes and not do them again. Definitely a double-edged sword. It always sucks tearing down a tank, but it is pretty fun starting up a new one. So that's kind of what Eduardo's been dealing with over the last couple years as far as new tanks, setting them up, and learning from his mistakes. Moving on to feeding and dosing. As far as food, Eduardo feeds pebbles daily, and then frozen and reef roids once a week, and reef nutrition, Fido, and oyster feast twice a week. He also doses BRS 2-part calcium and magnesium and BRS Kalkwasser. He had kind of an interesting schedule that he shared with me. He doses 2-part during the day, and then at night he'll dose the Kalkwasser to keep the pH up. I thought this was a pretty cool way of doing it. I am a big fan of Kalkwasser. I took it out of my system because it was just a bit too messy and a bit too much of a hassle. But that's definitely a different way of doing it, just doing the 2-part during the day and the kalkwasser at night. Well, I think that's about all I got in Eduardo's tank. I just want to thank him for letting me show the world his tank. It's pretty sweet. Go ahead and give him a follow on Instagram and YouTube. I'll post those on the link down below. And just let me know if you guys want to see some more tank tours. I love showing everyone these cool tanks in San Diego. So yeah, just let me know if anyone's in the San Diego area and wants me to do a video of their tank. Just leave a comment and I'll check it out. I'll leave you guys with a little tour of Eduardo's sump and then some extra footage. All right, thanks for watching.